and how we're going to fix them, talking about most common mistakes on listings and how to fix them. So hopefully you guys can see my screen tonight. I've got a few new people joining the call, so I welcome to those of you who are newer. We will start at close to 5:30. I apologize for my tardiness, but we'll go through a little bit of a PowerPoint slides. I will deviate a little bit from them to show you some really good tips, and we should end the call about 6:04, 6:05. So most common mistakes and how to fix them. As I kind of scroll down here, we're going to really keep it simple. Tonight we're going to go over who has the listings in our office and how do you get assistance. Talk briefly about documents, things that are common mistakes that I'm seeing still. We'll talk about the NWMLS rules. There's a couple that I'm still seeing being violated. We'll also go over input red flags. There's a few that still I'm seeing, and give you a few discussion tips on what to think about with some of the newest changes that are on the MLS. Who has the listing? So let me go ahead and show you guys on the screen here by going to the MLS. So one of the things I think you guys are not realizing is you have access to find out who in our office has listings. You're able to see your past listings. Many of you just don't realize that you have access to this information. The only thing you need is your lag number or the office number. I'm going to show you really quickly how to do that. We have it set up on a hot sheet so that anytime a listing is loaded in the MLS in whatever county or area we service, my staff member in the office, Carly or Kristen, actually gets notified. And so we set that up by just going to Matrix. And this would be something you may want to do if you are a newer agent. You're thinking, well, I want to do open houses for people. Maybe I want to be, I want to be notified when those opportunities come up. You can do that by going to search. You want to search all properties. So you want to do cross properties. Click on general. And then the only thing you have to know, like I said before, is to know your lag number. I want to know anything that's going active. You can also do canceled or expired. You can also search for these types of things. And then you put right down here, you have listing and co-list agent ID. The listing and co-listed office ID is the number of our firm number. So if you're in the main firm, it's number 2735. So currently we have 130 active listings in our office. You could do that with any office number. Say you wanted to see how much, I just happen to know Zip Realty's number. Zip Realty has 7129, that's their office ID number. They have only 25 listings currently active on the market. So you can do that for any real estate firm that subscribes to the MLS. Now, if we wanted to see how many listings you have, I have 4 active listings under my lag number. So the lag number goes on the top and the office number potentially would go here. This would be for listings. If you're trying to find out, well, what are my sales? The office, and again, we don't have any active sales, so that would get you a 0. So that's not what you want to use. Don't put the numbers here, put them here on the left side. Okay, so that's how you figure that out. And then if you wanted to set up for a hot sheet, there's down here, you have to search for it, and then you would have to save it. So like I could save anybody that's going to put a new listing on the market. I could find them first, and then there's a button down here to save the search. So that's how you would do it. If you're trying to watch an area or save a hot sheet, you would want to click save and create a new automatic email or a new save search. Okay, let's go back to our PowerPoint. So that's my first little tip or trick for the night. Some of you that are new to the business will appreciate that. And knowing how to get access to that information. My goodness, I got too many screens open here. There we go. Points. There we go. Okay, keep it simple. So now we're going to who has listings. We talked about that. Oh boy. Missing documents. So we did a search in our office just to find out how many listings we have, and we actually pulled that number up tonight, and how many of them had failed to send in their listing documents. So when I talk about listing documents, I'm talking about just 1As. And I would say we have 40% of those people that have an active listing have not sent in their listing documents. And you guys, if you're on the call, please go ahead and send it to support@bestchoicerealtywa.com. Maybe you thought, oh, I don't need to. Maybe it's until it goes active on the market. In your brokerage agreement, when you signed up with Best Choice Realty, you said you would go ahead and give me a copy of the listing agreements, any agreements that you have, whether it be a mutual contract or a listing agreement. A listing agreement is a requirement. So I have my staff reach out and talk to some of the 40% of you who have not given us copies of the 1A. We are running into some difficulty with some potential complaints coming into the firm and not being able to respond to them in a timely manner because you guys aren't giving me the documents. So look for an email if you have not sent it to support@bestchoicerealtywa.com. If you need some help, you're like, oh my gosh, Rochelle, I'm just so busy. I get it. You know, there's a lot of people calling you. Can you come out to my home? Can you take my listing? I missed the window. I want to get it on the market right away. You may want to employ, when I mean by employ, you're not required to do this, but you can use my highly trained listing assistant in-house. For $150, they will syndicate your property. They'll input everything for you, make sure your supplements are loaded, annotate your photographs, open your title, coordinate your sign installation, coordinate your photography, create your flyer, create a postcard, send it to you for proofing, coordinate all the shipping, and making sure it's done quick and easy. It's worth $150, in my opinion, easily done. So if you do need to employ that person, there is a link to our standard listing assistant on the marketplace. You just need to go to Best Choice Realty Homes and you can employ, or if you'd simply like to send an email to support@bestchoicerealtywa.com, they will also direct you to this link so you can get yourself a listing assistant. It's well worth it. Every time I send somebody to the listing assistant, they're like, wow, I should have done this a long time ago. There's a lot of missing things that you do when you're working really fast or you have a lot of volume that you're working on. Here's the common mistakes that I'm seeing a lot of you guys doing. This is actually one of our listing agreements that just came in this morning. And you can notice the listing date is where June 25th, I actually got the listing paperwork. So at least this agent did a good job of getting me the documentation that I needed. But as I'm reviewing it, I'm noticing some things that are very concerning. So the first one being the commission is pretty low. So I don't know if this agent understands how to fill out the commission. So the commission, this first line is the total commission. Notice on line 29, it says total commission. What that means is that when you take the listing with the seller and the seller signs off on it, you are negotiating how you're going to be paying the buyer's agent. The total commission goes on the top line. So with the co-op being 2.5, what that means to me is that Best Choice Realty will only be receiving 0.5%. Now, I don't know if that's the intent of the listing agent that's maybe on the call tonight, or if that's an agent that just is giving a lot of commission away. At Best Choice Realty, as long as we make our transaction fee, our $495 plus the E&O and the B&O, it is okay for you to negotiate this way. I don't tell you how you charge commission. That is something that you as a business owner would determine. When you're working with the seller, maybe you do. Maybe she wanted to give away. Maybe the seller is paying for all of the photography and the staging and the marketing expenses, and maybe he's not wanting her to do an open house. I don't know how she's charging, but all I do know is how the form is filled out. And this may not be proper. It may be that she's trying to do, a 0.5 point off for the commission. And so maybe she's trying to do like a 4.5% or a 5.5%. I don't know if she realized that she's only getting paid 0.5%. So be careful on your commission. a lot of people don't realize, now I want to sell my own property. I don't want to take a commission. You still are required to have a listing agreement if it's your own property. The proper thing to do if you are doing your own listing, meaning maybe you're husband and wife and you have an investment property and you're putting it on the market this week, then you don't want to charge a commission. You just want to pay the house or the firm a fee. The way you would write that, and I have it in the bullet point here, you can put it right here. It's just the easiest place to type it in, would be 538.07 plus 3% would go in this section right here next to the total commission. And then it would be in this case, it would be a 3% to the co-op commission. If you are paying 3% to the co-op commission, the 3% would go right here in the second line on line 31. Okay, so if in this particular example here on the right, let's say I was only going to be, maybe it was in Tacoma and they don't, the co-op commission is okay at 2.5%, then I would write in the total commission section 538.07 plus 2.5% commission. And then the line 31 would still have 2.5. That would be the way to write this if it was my own property and I was not taking a commission. That gets the house paid. The reason why it's not $495 is because it takes into account the business and occupations tax as well as the $35 in E&O. So that's how that's done on your commission rate if it's your own property or you're not taking a commission. Changing the listing date, I'm also seeing a lot of you do improperly, and this can get yourself into trouble. Luckily, I have not had any fines in our firm, but I fully anticipate with 40% of our documents not coming in appropriately, and now I'm getting audited to produce, the listing contracts that you guys should be giving me. I am going to have some heartburn if you guys are not doing this correctly. So what's being audited, just so you know, is the date here, the listing date. Now you might have put June 25th. Let's say you end up putting it on the market on June 26th or 28th because maybe the photography wasn't done. Maybe you were late in getting it done and inputted on the MLS. Anytime you're running into some late scenarios or you're finding that maybe the seller decided they wanted to wait another week before they go live on the market for whatever reason, this contract, this list date, it must be filled in to have a valid contract. And it does say it must be published to the MLS by a certain time, by 5 p.m. Let's say in that scenario that you ran into some problems in getting it on the market, then we would need you to modify or amend Section 3 of the listing contract and get your seller to initial that. You can do that. I would greatly appreciate your help in getting that done so that we don't have any problems or complaints, because what it says in Section 23 through 25 is that we're not going to be promoting, advertising, marketing, sending emails, texts, or anything like that between that time, that coming soon provision that's in the MLS standards, the co-op. The way we cooperate in the MLS is to not pre-market or put coming soon or market it any way before that date, before that list date. So that's where it becomes very challenging when I don't have copies of the contract. I'd love to be able to get involved and tell the MLS that no, we actually went live on the market on the correct date. We are having some challenges with that in the firm. No fines, no issues there, but definitely some heartburn when I'm trying to deal with paperwork. The other thing I want to bring your attention to is that you will find when you do listings in Transaction Desk, you will find that there is a Best Choice Realty Form 18 that is uploaded for your uses. The reason for that is because I do employ a lot of people to assist with the preparation of my own listings. And I know many of you that are on the call would also like to take advantage of some of the resources that we have at Best Choice Realty, such as cleaners, contractors, stagers. We actually have in-house stagers that we've used. Catherine Lenhart, she does amazing work. I know she posted on our Facebook group. She's working with Sarah Screen, one of our top listing agents. So those types of opportunities, it makes me a little bit nervous when there's not an amendment to the listing agreement to allow for those people to come in and access the property. And it may be at their cost or at your cost, but there should be a listing agreement amendment to allow for those types of contractors or cleaners or those types of people to come into the property. So this amendment to Form 18 is used for that type of protection. So if you are kind of in that boat, just like I am, which is I want to make sure we have the listing properly listed and allow those contractors to come in and do some work to the property before it goes live on the market, you will want to go ahead and include a Form 18 and get the sellers to sign off on it, just to protect yourself. Luckily, there hasn't been too many problems with allowing some of these vendors, but you never know. You know, if you use a different cleaner or a different stager than Catherine Lenhart, maybe you want to go ahead and protect yourself. And that's the way to do that with the Form 18. You can find the form on Transaction Desk, or it should be on bestchoicerealtyhomes.com /forms. And also there are some vendors that we highly recommend that you can use, but again, use the vendors, but maybe use the listing agreement addendum. Now we're jumping into common mistakes that I'm seeing on the MLS. And these are where you get notification if you've done something incorrectly. So some of them you get automatic fines, other ones they give you a grace period. Like I talked about earlier, one of the errors I'm seeing, the number one error is the changing the listing date to a, it's a live date or when you go live on the market. Sometimes I've never really been fined for going early. So if I'm going to put a date out there, go ahead and put a date in there. Maybe that's the longest date possible and then go early live on the market. Nobody's really complained about that. Where we get the complaints or the potential complaints is if you are delaying in getting me documents, or you end up delaying because the seller needs to agree to the extension on the listing date. So make sure that you cross off and have how to fix it, cross off that date if it's going to be a later date and have the seller initial. Or alternatively, you may want to consider getting a date later on in the 30-day period and then working sooner or working quicker to get it on the market. The second error that I'm seeing on paperwork is accessibility being checked and marketed, and then basically there's a form that needs to be filled out and sent to the MLS in order for accessibility to be made live. So what this accessibility is for properties that are built or that exist, that are helpful for people that have trouble accessing the property. So this would be condominiums where there's elevators. This would be homes where the doorways are wide enough to have accessibility for wheelchairs. This is a fairly new field in the MLS, and it is being regulated, and no fines are being assessed, but it's kind of an annoyance. And it doesn't need to be an annoyance if you guys know what you need to do. So if you have a property that does have good accessibility and you want to market that to the disabled and to the people that would really benefit from that type of property type, go ahead and get yourself a Form 6B. It will avoid having that automatic error notice come over to you from the MLS if you have a 6B on file. That 6B then needs to be sent to listing input. So just listing input at NWMLS.com. You can email it directly to them and they will go ahead and mark you off so that you don't have a flag or an error on your listing. The third error I see a lot of being notices being sent. I get CC'd on all of the error notifications. So if you guys can help me minimize my error notifications, I greatly appreciate this one. This is something I've been doing many, many times. If the property is vacant, it still requires a phone number or an owner record. And so if you don't want to have your seller's phone number as part of the listing, there's a way to opt them out. And that is to zero out their phone numbers. If you want to input that way, then you need to have a Form 7B on file. One of the things that I think about the term, think about how you structure your listings and what will happen when a listing expires in the MLS and the owner phone number is filled in where it has 206-947-0811 or whatever the phone number is. The moment that listing goes expired, it gets routed into all of these syndicators that allow for other firms to market your listing or to try to get your listing to become not expired, but active with their firm or marketed under their brokerage. So when you think about the term, think also about your 7B. If you want to control your client and your listing and the people that contact your seller, then you may want to zero out their phone number. The only way to make that compliant, to not get an error, to not have an issue with your listing, is to have a Form 7B on file. Only then can you zero out the phone number on the listing. There has been several of you who have asked me that you put the phone number in and you said, is there a way around this so that my sellers don't get bombarded when I do say I want to start a new listing, it expires, my term expires, and I want to go back live with a new MLS number. Days on market would stay the same, but I want a new MLS number. It would need to have, if you don't want the phone numbers or the phone to be ringing off the hook with your seller, that you need to expire it at the period of time. If you want to take like a 60-day term, for example, and then remarket it with another MLS number, zero out your 7B. Use a 7B, send it to the listing input team at the Northwest MLS, and then you can have zeros, and then you basically get a new MLS number, and you mark it again with a 7B, and you zero out the phone number, and you then control the seller. You control the listing. If you put the phone number on, just realize that after the term is up, that number, that owner's phone number, will get syndicated out to all of these syndicators that will then have access to your seller's phone number. So that's something you want to think about when you think about confidentiality and you controlling your seller, you controlling the listing. I would think you may want to go ahead and grab the 7B and maybe include that with every listing. It really depends though. If you want your seller to control who comes and goes through their property with the phone to show, that's where you would have a phone number listed. If not, 7B would be the appropriate form, and that gets sent to the MLS for input. The fourth one I'm seeing a lot of is virtual staging and videography. A lot of people are getting into that now, and things need to be properly disclosed in the agent remarks. And you cannot use YouTube as a videography as a way to do that. Some of you are getting past it, but then others of you are getting fined or getting reviewed or notified that it's not proper. So there has to be proper attribution and branding when it comes to videography that's done and then promoted on the MLS. Now, there's no reason why you can't have a YouTube video. There's certainly no reason. It's just how you promote it on the MLS where you could get flagged. Also, when you're doing virtual staging, you really should make a comment in the agent remarks that it is virtually staged. That's becoming a new thing, and I don't want to have somebody, saying, well, you are marketing something that it's really not. But just a simple note in the agent remarks would do the trick on that. This is, if you haven't done a listing, these are the kind of automatic notifications that get hit to me and then also to you. This is the one that comes at Rule 1E, where the violation was the accessibility information. It tells you what you need to do and how to fix it. In order to avoid being flagged like this, just do the 6B, and then you don't have to worry about it if you are listing it as accessible features. The other one here's a sample of what the 6B looks like. You just check the box and you submit that to the MLS. And then this is the other one where you get notified if it's Rule 11B, you're in violation of Rule 11B. It talks about what you need to do to fix that. Again, it's 7B is the form you need. So if you want to avoid being fined the $50, go ahead and get the 7B at your disposal so that you can continue to zero out the phone number and not get fined for doing so. There's the 7B. So this is where you actually have to put the phone number here. Then this form gets submitted to the MLS, and then they put letter on file, and it just flags everybody that you have a letter on file, and then you can zero everything out. So they actually don't see it. Only the MLS would see the actual phone number of the seller. This is a sample of what virtual staging will look like. This just fresh off the press. I just had this property, and they have like old recliners. They pretty much have packed everything away. They're living very minimal. They don't want to have people, the big dog that they have, a very beautiful property on, about 3 or 4 acres. And they just don't want to have, they didn't want to have a stager come in and professionally stage. They have to worry about the dog. They have to worry about the in and the out. They don't live that way, but they live very simply. So what I opted to do is when I took the photographs, I moved some of the stuff out of the picture, and then we sent the original photos to boxbrownie.com, and then boxbrownie.com went ahead and staged this. It didn't cost me very much, so it's become very affordable now, and also it looks a lot better than it used to back in the day. But this photograph right here, to have this staged the way I had it staged, was $35 per photo. So you can see that much better. They have they had an older bed and didn't like the way it looked. They found something that looked really good with the curtains or with the shades that were here. I thought they did a great job of staging this virtually, and $35, not bad for having these two photos staged. I want to talk, before I run out of time, the 60 days off market to get to zero. They recently changed this so that you can actually have 0 days on market once you've been on the market for 60 days, once you've been off the market for 60 days, only then can you have your counter go to 0. So does this affect your term of your listing agreements? It possibly could, knowing that you have this change recently to the MLS. This change was done so that you could go after expireds and really adapt to some of these opportunities and have good conversations with those potential sellers. Once they're off the market for 60 days, then you can have a fresh start at going on the market with a 0 days on market counter. How you speak with expireds and canceled, you may want to give them time. Let's get some stagers and photographers and help them clean up the property. Maybe get a contractor out there to fix some of the deferred maintenance and then go on the market. That might help them. If they go on the market after only been off the market for 30 days, that might impact them when it comes to their 0 days on the market counter. So you may want to come up with some different, change the way you speak with your expired opportunities or your canceled opportunities. When you're speaking with canceled opportunities, make sure that they're aware that anytime that they've gone canceled, that they've signed an expiration that's different than a cancellation. Cancellation means they could potentially owe another buyer if they came to the table. They were listed with Windermere, and then they canceled with Windermere because they were not happy with Windermere's marketing, or they just wanted to, go with a different company, and they canceled with them. If they canceled with Windermere and they signed a Form 52, which I encourage you guys to do in our firm, the seller could potentially owe a commission to Windermere if a buyer comes to the table that came because of the marketing that was done prior to Best Choice Realty taking over that listing. So be sure that you help your sellers understand that there is paperwork that's associated with the cancellation. With the expired, there wasn't any paperwork. They're fine with the expired, but the cancellation could be deemed, if you have a good savvy designated broker that will fight hard for their listings, they could be having to deal with that, or the firm that they go with could be having to deal with somebody like me who will be going after that opportunity or that commission that was missed. Also, you want to, I'm sorry for my typo there, how to communicate a 30-day market plan or a remarket plan for the additional 30 days. I'm not suggesting you how to take your terms on your listing agreement, but you may want to think about how long you take a listing for as we start to transition into this type of marketplace. Some of your competitors may opt to take longer terms of listing agreements to lock their sellers in, because it might take longer to sell the listing or to do price reductions, where you may want to alternatively adjust your mode of thought to maybe do a different type of term approach. Again, this is just an idea. This is not meant to be an all-in-one. You guys might want to continue to, depends on the seller really with how you do this. But you may want to consider, if you have a good relationship and you do know how to use the 7V to your advantage, you may want to talk about having a listing agreement for maybe 30 days or 60 days, and then have a remarket plan so that they do get a remarketing or another look or another MLS number after that term is up. The one thing that you don't want to get yourself in doing is taking a term, say like 3-month or 6-month term, and then your seller gets frustrated and says, we want to remarket. We want to, a fresh look at how this is done. The only way you can do that to remarket it is if you to basically cancel and relist it with a new MLS number. You can only do that if it's a 5% decrease or increase in the price. If not, you will get a $250 fine, and that's automatic. So in order to avoid that, you may want to think about your strategy from the very beginning when you take the listing, rather than having to kind of go back on your word or redo or renegotiate your listing agreement with your seller. You don't want your seller getting frustrated in the process of, I've been on the market for 30 or 60 days and you guys have said you would have a buyer for me, and you're like having to adjust price and have to remarket and then having to have this automatic fine. It's never fun to have that automatic fine. So it used to be that you could, if there's substantial adjustments in how you're doing, how the property looks, they've removed that from the rules of conduct, and they've removed that completely. So now they only get the 5% decrease or increase. Otherwise, you get a $250 fine. So you may want to consider
Rochelle,
how you do
question
things.
for you. Can you do the 5%? Can you do the listing if you're willing to be subjected to that fine? Can you list it without that 5% variation if you're willing to pay the fine?
Yeah, I mean, that's something where it doesn't look good for the firm, Chris, and it doesn't bode well for the agents out there. But that's potentially what you're looking at, is you're getting fined $250 every time you cancel and relist.
Got it. Thank you.
Great question. The other thing to wrap up, it's almost 6:05, is I wanted to show you real quick here, now that I've done my PowerPoint. I've got Chris on the line. This is good. So you'll like this, Chris. So a lot of you guys are opening title with your trusted title company. And I've got to go in and help re-educate my staff a little bit too. So let me get in here. It takes a little bit of time to switch gears and to show you. I know I'm using bandwidth. It's crazy. I log in again. They log me out, so they have to make sure I'm using my login and password at the MLS. Okay, so I go into Matrix. And I'll leave you guys with this, but I think this is probably one of the most important things to take away, is that you have the ability on your inputting to indicate, let's see if I'm going into my listing. Come on, there we go. I have a listing right now that's going to be going. You saw the one that I'm pre-marketing. Shame on me. Hopefully this doesn't get caught up with YouTube. So this listing will be going on the market. I'm violating right now a rule. So basically you have Lower Burnett Road. This is one that, so no offense, Chris, but Lisa Schultz helped me get this opportunity. Since she lives out in Buckley, so she helped me get this seller on board. But let's say that we were going to upload supplements. I can manage my supplements right here, and I want to upload. This is where some of you guys, there's a legal description here, but let's say that I've got time to prepare my listing. So let's say Chris Somerville, he's went ahead and we got the legal description, but we want to do a full, like we want to have the total title, like the vesting, we want to have all of that loaded so that we don't have an issue with a title coming back not right. You can do that if you give title enough time. Chris, how long do you need to do a full, if you've got the listing agreement signed, how long does it take WFG to get me a title report? Is it
right now we're running usually without a rush about 2 business days.
Okay. I've been telling people about a week. So if you have a week to
2
prepare.
to 3 business days, yeah.
Yeah, if you have a week, why not go ahead and select the file here? So we already have the legal description loaded, but let's say we want to go ahead and upload the full title report. we would just upload the full title report, but just make sure you select the description. So you'd say full title report from WFG. That way they know that you've already spent the time, the money, the expense, WFG has already checked everything. And then you've got the ability of these drop-down options to be able to pick what this is that you have attached. So there's a plat, parcel, survey maps. I don't see, let's see, title, resale certificate, short sale, undisclosed, preliminary commitment. There it is. That's what you're looking for. You're wanting preliminary commitment. But I like to put who it's from so they know that we've already spent the money and actually got it. Then we click upload, and then now you've got it. It will show up correctly. A lot of you aren't putting the type or description. It's super frustrating because when it carries over into transaction desk. So if you're describing it as well as doing the drop-down type, that's going to carry over into transaction desk. I can't emphasize that enough. The other thing that you guys should be doing is uploading your resale certificates. If you're working with condominiums or HOA documents, I know, Chris, we had that situation with Teresa she was awesome. She got right on it, but I failed to upload it into the supplements, and all of a sudden I started getting offers, and it would have been so nice to have the HOA documents right here. See, I can go in here and actually upload the document and then indicate what supplement type that is. And then that way it's viewable by all the buyer's agents. So don't forget you have all these drop-down options. And the more you have, the better, in my opinion. Okay? And then the other thing to show you would be on the agent remarks. So like if I go to my agent remarks, there always is a title. When you get a title order number, I'd rather see you put, and this is Chicago, this is who we ordered it with. If it was WFG, you put WFG, but put the order number, whatever it is. Okay, that helps in getting the system routed correctly. It fast tracks everything for Chris and his team, or whatever title and escrow company you're working with. You could still suggest a closer. Closer would be Teresa Jameson at WFG.
Hey, Rochelle.
Yep.
And then the other reason why that's important too, and I think that this is probably consistent across the board with all title and escrow companies, is if, say, for instance, you had two brokers that typically use Chicago or WFG, and
right.
You have a preferred and you don't put your preferred in there, and then you have someone that goes mutual, you may see a selling agent put in their preferred closer.
Right.
So, it's always good to put that stuff, and the more information in there is the better. So,
okay. So make sure you do that. And this would be also, some photographs are virtually staged. So that's maintain compliance with DOL and MLS rules that say, that we're marketing appropriately. So that would be a requirement. It's something like that would be appropriate to put into the listing. Once you're done, you click submit, and then when you go live, that will show up to all the agents. That's all I have for tonight, you guys. Hopefully this was helpful. I had a lot of information to cover. We'll catch you next Monday. We start another series. There's some good changes coming out that I think you guys will be happy about. And some good advice I can give you next week about listings and marketing. So join us next Monday for that, and we'll look forward to seeing you there.
Thanks, Rochelle.
Talk later.